it's me, Anne-Marie, and here is another Sunday School video, this time from the wonderful, glorious ICE office. Yes, I'm filming in a different location today. It was just easier to film here, and you get to see where I normally work. Hooray! That's really cool. So today we are going to look at the next two books of the New Testament, 1 and 2 Corinthians. I hope you guys are getting along really well with the song, but let's dive straight in to these books and see what they're all about. Let's go! Okay, the first book that we're going to look at is 1 Corinthians, and our key phrase for this book is correcting the church. So, 1 Corinthians is a letter to the church in Corinth, written by Paul. Now, Paul was a really important guy in the Bible. He wrote loads of the New Testament letters, as you'll probably see as we go along. We've already heard a little bit from him, but we're going to learn more and more about him and the letters that he wrote as we go forward. Corinth was a big and bustling city, a little bit like how we might think of London today. It's a big place full of lots of different people from lots of different places, all mixing together. And that's great, isn't it? That's where we get new ideas, that's where we can share new ways of thinking together. It's good when lots of different people can come together. But it also can mean that there are lots of clashes, where people have different thoughts and beliefs and different ways of living. That means people often disagree on many, many things. Just like in the church in Corinth, there were lots of clashes. So with all of these different people coming from all of these different places, with all of their different cultures and beliefs, trying to get together into one church, there were arguments. People didn't get along, people argued over what they should believe in, who they should follow. The church in Corinth was really struggling. Paul says, even when we might come from different places, we might think slightly different things about how we should be Christians. None of those things should tear us apart. Instead, we should put Jesus in charge and be united in him, having one heart and one mind that's all about loving God and loving others. Paul says that it is great that all of these different people can come together and bring all of the different gifts that God can give us. Gifts of speaking in different languages, of understanding, gifts of prophecy, figuring out mysteries using knowledge, and having great faith. But Paul says if we have all of these things and don't have love, then they kind of mean nothing. Love is more important than all of those different things that we might end up disagreeing on. So that's why the church in Corinthians needed to be corrected. They weren't acting properly. They were letting all of their differences and disagreements bog everything down and get in the way of loving God and loving others. So there's a challenge for us today, isn't there? Because our church is made up of lots of different people from lots of different places, and that's fantastic. That's what it should be. But sometimes that can lead to us having a disagreement with someone, maybe even falling out. So the next time we feel like we're in those murky waters of maybe disagreeing with someone, maybe falling out, let's try and think about what is more important to us. Is it more important to me to be right and prove the other person wrong? Or actually, is it more important, like Paul says, for us to put Jesus in charge and for us to be united in loving God and loving others? So that's 1 Corinthians, correcting the church. Next, let's have a look at 2 Corinthians. Okay, so you can probably guess by now that 2 Corinthians is another letter to the church in Corinth from Paul. The key word for 2 Corinthians, or the key phrase for 2 Corinthians, is anatomy of an apostle. So those are a couple of unusual words. Let's unpack them a bit. First of all, anatomy. Anatomy is the study of what is inside of us. So here is a skeleton. Radiographers in the church and doctors, please don't come for me, okay? This is a perfectly fine skeleton. It is not supposed to be anatomically correct, all right? Everyone can see that this is a skeleton. So anatomy shows us what is inside of us, what makes us, our bodies, tick, basically, what's inside of us. Anatomy, I would be labeling all of these different bones to be like, here is the anatomy of a person. And an apostle is somebody who has seen Jesus, who has been with Jesus, someone who's very close to Jesus. So Paul, in this letter, is saying, here is my anatomy of someone who is close to Jesus, who has authority because of that relationship that I have with Jesus. In his first letter, Paul is correcting the church, helping them to live for God. In this second letter, Paul is defending himself against the people in Corinth who got really mad at him, thinking, how can he tell us how to live? He's not even here. How can he tell us how to follow God? So Paul tells them how he is an apostle and why they should listen to his advice. Paul defends himself by saying, you say that I am timid and shy when we're face to face, but bold when I am away, meaning you think I'm a different person in my letters than I am face to face. But Paul says that's not the way. Paul says he wants to teach with gentleness, but also with boldness. He says, we demolish arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. We have to take captive every thought and make it obedient to Jesus Christ. Paul challenges the church in Corinth. He says, don't compare yourselves to each other. Don't compare me to each other. We should all look at the standard that God has set. He says, let whoever boasts, boast in God. But Paul also encourages them. He says, there is no need for me to write to you about the service to the saints, for I know your eagerness to help, and I have been boasting about it to the people in other churches, telling them that since last year you were ready to give, and your enthusiasm has stirred other people into action too. So the message of 2 Corinthians is all about Paul saying, hey, don't just listen to me because I say you should, but look at what God has done in my life, and look what God has taught me. I'm trying to help you learn these things as well. Now, the challenge for us today is for us to listen to those people around us who might be trying to teach us, whether that's a Sunday school teacher, someone in school, maybe someone who's preaching from the front to the adults on Sunday mornings or evenings. It's really good for us to listen to those people because we know that they've spent lots of time studying the Bible and praying. They might be able to teach us things that we wouldn't learn about God just by ourselves. That doesn't mean we switch our brains off. God has given us minds that can think and question, and it's always good to ask questions. But it's also really good for us to respect those who have authority over us, especially our teachers. They're always trying to give us good information for us to live well, especially those who try and teach us about the Bible. They're trying to teach us how to live God's way, just the same as Paul taught the church in Corinth. Okay, so that is it for 1 and 2 Corinthians. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video, but that is it from me today. Last thing to say is to take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and take care of our wonderful world that we live in. And hopefully we will see you soon face to face, which would be great. But for now, bye-bye, and I'll see you again another time. Bye-bye.